The option of doing a webinar, but I really wanted the interaction with people. So I really like the questioning and the answering. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you what I've put together. And then I'll open it up to questions, because the Fulbright it's a kind of a monster to deal with, and I don't want to scare anyone by saying that, but it's a pretty comprehensive application to put together, and there's a lot of little nuances to talk about. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please ask me. I don't know all the answers, but I know a lot. And then if there's any questions that happen or that occur to you afterwards, please contact me. I am really open to helping anyone with this program, because it's seriously changed my life significantly twice now. And I'm really excited about that. So I am going to share screen. So desktop, share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
There's my face, yay. Okay, so I want to say hello to everyone. My name is Nicole Jacquard. I'm an artist and an educator who lives and works in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm the head of the metalsmithing and jewelry design program at Indiana University, as well as a former SNAG president. So I really want to thank everyone for being here. I'm absolutely thrilled that so many people found this topic interesting, and 90 people signed up for it. So that's really amazing. And this is a program that I personally love. I think I love talking about the Fulbright in general. So I'm more thrilled that you guys engaged on a Saturday because I know that I'm personally zoomed out myself. I have another Zoom meeting. I think that someone might not be on mute. So if you are not on mute, you might want to click that just so that there's no background noise. And then I'd like to start, before we start with the actual presentation, I'd like to just take a moment of silence. Another person was laid to rest this week, Mr. Brooks. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to have a moment of silence for the Black Lives Matter. Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge that this is Pride Month. And because I'm conducting this craft lab in Bloomington, Indiana on IU campus, I would like to acknowledge the indigenous people, and I would like to honor the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people whose ancestral lands and resources Indiana University was built. So thank you, and let's get started. When putting together this craft lab, I knew a lot of information from my personal experiences. However, a lot has changed about the overall application, the process. For example, it's all online now. When I first applied in '95, it was a paper thing that you had to have it postmarked by a certain date. And even since my most recent one in 2017 to 18, the websites have changed. And there are actually new awards that I found out about while on my previous Fulbright. So I quickly realized that I could have actually done 2 sessions, one for students and one for scholars. However, there is a lot of information that overlaps with the Fulbright itself. So with this lab, I hope to explain some basic overall information for you and share my experiences, which again, were truly life-changing, and which I feel the mission of the Fulbright is even more poignant and powerful and necessary at this particular time. We need more exchange and understanding, and I truly feel at its core, Fulbright is doing that work. So, what is the Fulbright and who started it? It was started by a man named J. William Fulbright, who was born in 1905 in Missouri. He was educated at the University of Arkansas, where he earned a BA degree in political science in 1925. He then attended Oxford University, where he received an MA degree, and because of this international experience in the UK, he was really, truly transformed. In September of 1945, William Fulbright, a freshman senator out of Arkansas, introduced a bill to Congress that called for the use of proceeds from the sales of surplus war property to fund the promotion of international goodwill through the exchange of students in the fields of education, culture, and science. 1 year later, President Truman signed that into law. Sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, the Fulbright is the flagship program. The goal of the Fulbright is to improve intercultural relations, cultural diplomacy, and intercultural competence between the people of the United States and other countries through the exchange of persons, knowledge, and skills. Today, Fulbright is the most widely recognized and prestigious international exchange program in the world, supported by more than a half a century by the American people through an annual appropriation from US Congress and by the people of commissions, partner nations. The program works with universities, schools, binational Fulbright commissions, government agencies, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector. It actively seeks out individuals of achievement and potential who represent the full diversity of their receptive societies and selects nominations through an open merit-based competition. Through this competitively selected process, American citizens, including students, scholars, teachers, professionals, scientists, and artists, may receive a scholarship or grants to study and conduct research, teach, or exercise their talents abroad. And citizens from other countries can apply to do the same in the US. Most people don't know that. Most people think it's people from the US just going to other countries. The program provides approximately 8,000 grants annually, roughly 1,600 to US students, 1,200 to scholars, 4,000 to foreign students, 900 to foreign visiting scholars, and several hundred to teachers and professionals. And there are over 160 countries that are part of the program. There are two types of awards. There are student awards and there are scholar awards. And right now you're seeing the student homepage. The institute that runs both programs is the IIE, the Institute of International Education, and that's based in New York. And they do manage both the scholars and the student. The CIES is the Council for International Exchange of Scholars, and they're based in Washington, DC. And that's the organization that actually runs the scholars program. So my particular experience with Fulbright is that I received two of them. I got a student Fulbright in 1994 or 5, and then I just received a research fellowship in 2017 and 18. I was just telling Sandra that I also served as a reader for Fulbright last year for internationals who are applying to come to the US. And that was really a fantastic opportunity to see what those applications look like and the range of applications. I've also mentored several people. Some were students that I've had at IU, and others were from workshops that I've taught at, like at Aramont or Haystack. They've heard about the Fulbright from me talking about it, and I've had them contact me later. I've read through their proposals for them, offered suggestions, and I'm more than willing to do that for whoever's interested in the Fulbright, because it is a really wonderful opportunity. And I'm really happy to say that one of my former students, a BFA student, Molly Gabbard, she was the recipient of a Fulbright, and when she called to tell me it, I felt like I won the Fulbright all over again. It was really fantastic. So I'm gonna briefly talk about the student awards and the scholar awards. You can see that there are the English Teaching Assistant Awards for the students, and then there are called Open Study Research Awards. The award that I got was the Open Study Research Award. And then under the Scholars Program, you'll see that there is the General Scholar Program, and then within this there is teaching opportunities, teaching and research, or just research. And for those of you who are teaching in a university setting, you want to make sure that your university will support one of these particular categories. And the reason why I bring that up is because at IU, they would only fully support the research component. They wouldn't support me if I was doing teaching and research. So that is something that you want to check out with your particular university. There are other awards such as chair awards. That is the most prestigious award for the Fulbright. There are flex awards, and those are really interesting because those are for scholars who don't have a lot of time to spend abroad, but you can actually split it up over a host country, and you can make short trips over 1 or 2 years. There is a Global Scholar Award and the Postdoctoral Award in early career. So those are people who have just gotten out of their degree and they want to go and do more extensive research in that particular country. And then there are professional projects. And so those are professional projects that maybe are not within an institution. And I give an example of an artist who went to, where was it? It was Finland, and she was looking at Arctic landscapes. And what does it say? Arctic landscape and the abstract realm of quantum physics. So that might necessarily, for her, it wasn't necessarily an institution that she was affiliated with. So with the student awards, the English teaching assistant, you are actually teaching English at an institution or some university, school, could be a high school. But normally with that, you would have another project that would take you outside the teaching area and into whatever it is you would like to research. The other one is the Open Study Research Award. Like I mentioned, that's really just coming up with your own project and going to do that research. There is what do I want to say about the open research? With the open research, there are opportunities where you could actually get a second degree. I did that on my first Fulbright. And with that, you would want to check you would have to get admitted into that institution that you were going to be at. So you would have to make sure that you fulfilled all those requirements. And then you would also want to make sure that if they did offer that, what types of fees are associated. So there are some other things that you can do while on your award, but you have to make sure that you do your homework for that particular country and that particular school. So for both students and scholars, these are just some things that overlap, and then there are some things at the bottom that are separate to each one of those particular awards. But number one, you want to find the appropriate country for what you want to do or make or explore. That's going to be in your statement, and you have to really make that case of why that country is so important. Getting an affiliation host letter is really key, and again, that does not have to be at a university. I will give you an example of Molly, my student who was at a residency program, basically. So when they give you the description in the written guidelines with the Fulbright, they don't say that you have to have an affiliation host letter, but it's highly encouraged. And the reason why is because you want to make sure that wherever it is that you're going to be, they have the resources that you need, that you possibly might need a studio, you possibly might need equipment. You want to make sure that they want to make sure that you're being taken care of, that you actually have someone in case you have problems, whether it's at the school itself, just navigating their system, or just at large while you're in this new country. So getting an affiliation host letter is really a very important component, and I can't stress that enough. You'd also want to look at a language requirement. If you're actually going to be doing research in a particular country and you don't speak the language, that might be a huge barrier for you. So if you are looking at a country, if you already have language experience, that's fantastic. If you don't, and you are looking at a particular country, you want to make sure that you start enrolling in some language classes, because there is a language evaluation that happens. You evaluate yourself, and then I believe it's 2 external evaluators evaluate your language skills, and then they upload those documents to your application. I can't stress enough the importance of the overall grant statement, the purpose of why you're going there. And with visual artists, it's even more key, because you want to make sure that it actually ties into your visual work. They have to see how that particular country would actually make sense for you to go to, for whatever reasons that you're laying out. Your professional activity, including your resume and other applicable activities, anything that makes you a really interesting, strong candidate. And it could be, besides the exhibitions that you're in or the lectures that you've given, it could be the other activities that you are engaged in within the community. They like to see a well-rounded person who's actually involved, because when you go over to another country, you are an ambassador of the United States, and they want to know that you are going to, be engaged within that particular place, meeting people, and having a very rich experience. And then the last one is a portfolio of work. Both students and scholars, you're going to have this component of putting together a visual representation of your work. What's different, what the main 2 things I think that are different is the students provide a personal statement. So this is really about you and your interests and how you got maybe interested in the host country. And then the scholars, you need to provide a bibliography backing up your work and your research. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the couple of Fulbrights that I was on, and kind of showing you how I tied in my work with the host country, and how that work changed as well, because that's always a part of it. You can never predict completely what you're going to be doing, but you want to make sure that when you're writing your statement, you're actually tying the, you're actually connecting the dots, I should say, for the readers themselves. So my first Fulbright was in 1995, and I just graduated from U of M in Ann Arbor. And at the time I was making several series, and a lot of them were on floral pieces that I was interested in. I was really looking at the parts of the particular objects. Whoops, that was a mistake. And then I was also looking at African adornment, and as well as other cultures who have unusual adornment. And what I mean by that is maybe it's a rites of passage. It's never taken off the body. We have in general, a different association with jewelry itself. So I was really looking at other cultures and how they were using adornment. And so this was Australia. This is Australia. I was based down in Melbourne. A lot of people don't know that Australia is pretty much the same size as the United States, so it's actually a huge country. So when you're planning, when you're talking about your purpose of your grant purpose of why you're going, you want to make sure that you're not saying something ridiculous like, I'm going to take day trips from Melbourne up to Cairns or Cooktown, because that's the distance from like Florida to Maine, right? Yeah, that's not going to happen. So the person that was my host was Collier Makigawa. I met Collier on her way through Ann Arbor. She was on a trip, and she was actually really good friends with Gina and Hiroko Pijanowski, who I was studying with. And the way that I made contact with Collier, because I just met her, briefly, had a conversation with her, I faxed her out of the blue. I just sent a fax, because at that time there wasn't really internet or anything, right? Or it was like just at the beginning of internet. So I faxed her out of the blue, and this was at the beginning of the summer. Yeah, I just graduated, so it was at the beginning of the summer. The application is due in October, and I received a fax back 1 week before the application was due. So it is a very extensive application, but it's not unreasonable in terms of like, I got it done in a week, and if you needed to get it done in a week, you could possibly do that as well. The one thing that was kind of saving me was that I didn't have to do a language requirement, so I didn't have to find these external people to evaluate my language skills. So that was something that was definitely working in my favor. So she checked with her school to find out if they would host me, and they were more than happy to host. Most institutions, and again, you don't have to go through an institution, I'll talk about that with Molly's, but most institutions are more than willing to have a Fulbright scholar, because it is a very prestigious thing for them to have at their university. So I was at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology University, or RMIT, and is the oldest gold and silver smithing school in Australia. And so while I was there, I think I mentioned this, I had the opportunity to get another MFA degree, and they actually waived the fees for that. So while I was there, I was studying and getting another degree, which was fantastic. So looking at the floral, looking at the indigenous floral plants that are really quite amazing to Australia, and they're fantastic and really intriguing. This is a Stewart Desert Pea. The previous ones were Bankseers, and these were some studies that I did on the right. So I was tying my proposal into the natural flora, as well as the fauna, the indigenous creatures that you can find there, which are really quite amazing. I was also looking at the indigenous artwork there by the Aboriginals. So really unique to that particular country. And then of course the landscape, traveling all over Australia was fantastic. I am a scuba diver, so diving on the Great Barrier Reef was a chance of a lifetime. So that's me and my sister. And then these are some of the pieces that I made from those, inspired by those dive trips. So this is a bracelet series that I was doing. So also while I was in Australia, it's a very relatively young country, and they have a really beautiful, unique mix of architecture. And this is the main strip of RMIT, and you can see the eclectic mix of buildings in terms of this building, which is a library, as well as classrooms. There's eateries down there. This is a gallery space, and then this is a conference hall on the right-hand side. So I really became interested in the architecture itself while living in this city. And so I made a series of architectural pieces while I was there, and that was kind of this unexpected thing that happened. But that does happen, and being on the cover of Metalsmith when I got back. That was fantastic. So after the after effects of this particular Fulbright, I found out that I came back to the United States and I really wanted to study more, and I really wanted to go back to Australia because I had such a fantastic time and I made really wonderful friends. While I was studying on my Fulbright, I met Dr. Robert Baines. He found out that there was a reciprocal agreement, so he actually applied for a Fulbright and did research at the Met looking at Etruscan granulation. So that was a really great unexpected outcome because I didn't know that that was actually a thing at that time. I applied to a PhD program down at RMIT. They knew me as a candidate and I was accepted. So I got a scholarship to go down there, and Robert was my supervisor. These are some other people that I met while I was down there. You might recognize some of their names, but they've all been visiting scholars back here at Indiana University. So whether they've lectured or whether they've come to do their own research, or given workshops and exhibitions. So that was really wonderful to meet all those people and to have them come to my hometown. One of the students that I was while I was down in Australia on my PhD, I was teaching. I had a student named Sim Luton. She decided she wanted to do her master's degree, so she came back to IU and she got her MFA. She actually recommended Katie Jacobs, who was a ceramicist, because she had such a fantastic time at IU. And so Katie came and did her MFA here. I mentioned that I often mentor students about the Fulbright. Sorry, that should say 2010, I believe, was her Fulbright. Molly was a BFA here at IU. This was some of the work that she was creating before she was applying. She was doing a lot of stone carving. She was looking at animals, their traits, their skins, furs, their markings. And because I had studied on a Fulbright and then later a PhD, I had been going back to Australia every maybe 2 years, whether it was lecturing or whether it was providing a workshop, or at this particular time, I went on a residency to Adelaide at the Grey Street. And so while I was there, because Molly was interested in applying to a Fulbright, I really saw a connection between Catherine Truman, who's a master carver, and what Molly was doing with carving stone. And so this is Catherine Truman, and that's some of her work on the left. And so I put them in touch with each other, and Grey Street is not a university. It's actually just I want to say like a cooperative. It has partners who rent out spaces, they have exhibitions, but it's really just a group of working people and making it happen actually in the city of Adelaide. And so this was some of the work that Molly created while she was down at Grey Street. And I actually went down to see her and we had an exhibition together. So she had a fantastic time and really, life-changing experience for her. So my second Fulbright was just in 2017-18, and that was to Scotland. My host was Dr. Sandra Wilson at the Duncan of Jordanstone College of Art and Design. And I found out through the Fulbright page that her institution actually hosted a Fulbright. There was one award for Scotland in the arts. And I contacted her out of the blue. Yeah, she's an amazing person. If anyone has ever met Sandra Wilson, she's a really lovely, giving person. So I emailed her out of the blue, and I just sent her a note explaining who I was and what the Fulbright was, and I asked her if she would be interested in talking and hosting me. And she emailed me back, I want to say later on that day, and said, yes, let's make this happen. Let's talk about your proposal. So to talk about the work that I was making before I went, I was actually creating these pieces using a 3D color printer, and I was printing QR codes onto brooches, mainly brooches. And when the QR code is scanned, it would take you to something else. And in this particular instance, it takes you to this location, and this is where the photograph was taken of my mother. And this is another example. So hidden on the back, when scanned, you would never really know the backstory behind this piece, but it takes you to this newspaper article that tells you the inspiration for that particular piece. So I was really interested in sharing with my viewers a different experience when creating artwork and how they view it and what they view. So that was part of my research. Another component that I was doing before I went was I was laser engraving onto mica, and it really gave a ghost-like effect, very similar to like a daguerreotype photograph. So when you shift a daguerreotype, it kind of, you know, subtly moves. So I really like that ghost-like quality. And as you saw in the previous image, like when a light is hit at a certain angle, it actually casts a shadow onto a surface. So that was really quite amazing. So I was interested in new technology and storytelling. And so what tied me to Scotland was I was looking at I was interested in the artifacts and the hoards that had been recently found in Scotland. So looking at these artifacts that are found, you know, centuries later, and then telling a story about them, because you'll never really know the true story, but through their investigation, you know, they can deduce certain things about artifacts, maybe obviously how they're made, depending on the types of research that they do on them. But knowing the story of how they actually got there, you know, for instance, was something that I was interested in. So I really wanted to expand on my previous QR work of storytelling, and I wanted to access the museums that were there and look at the hoards and tell stories through augmented reality. And I'll show you some examples of what that actually means. So this was one of the brooches that I was really interested in, the Hunterson brooch, which is absolutely amazing to see. And it is about this large, it's huge. Looking at the hoards and what they actually contain. So here are all these silver bars, and then you'll see that there are these are armlets that are folded. And then depending on how they were folded, they were actually thinking that maybe if it had one fold, then they belonged to one person. If they had two folds, and that meant they belonged to another person. So whenever they would dig up the hoard again, they would find what belonged to them. Other objects within the hoards and how they were x-raying them to find out what was inside of them was really interesting. The types of ornamentation, the torques, which were of the Viking age, and the importance of silver and gold within those particular times. I definitely got to travel around Scotland, which is an absolutely amazing country to see and beautiful people to meet, for sure. And so this was some of the finished work that I made from that particular, my particular experience. I'm still working on the artifacts, but this was what really popped out. And it was because of all the research that I was doing in the city. I fell in love with that city. And Dundee is a city that's definitely had boom and bust through the Industrial Revolution. It's known for jute, jam, and journalism. And it's definitely seen some tough times, but there is definitely a strong sense of place and honor within that particular community. So what you're looking at now is a piece that's called the Tay-Rail Bridge, and this was a bridge disaster that happened. And this is something that I would walk by every day. This is the augmented reality on the left-hand side. So when you scan it with a smartphone, this is a particular application that you would download, it will take you to the movie, and the movie's playing down on the lower right-hand side. So this is how it would actually tell you the story or the influences that I was thinking about when actually creating this piece. And so it would give you facts as well. And the Tay-Rail Bridge disaster was considered the most notorious bridge disaster in the UK, and I believe it still is to this day. This was another piece. There's, I believe, there's 5 in the series that are finished, but I'm just giving you another example. And this piece was about 2 famous Scots and their collaboration creating caliotype photographs. And this was a process that was developed by an Englishman, William Henry Fox Talbot, in 1839. And he introduced a technique of using paper coated with silver oxide. And this was around the same time as the daguerreotype, so it really kind of hit home for me. And the daguerreotype was being developed in France, but the caliotype was the first process to introduce a negative film from which multiple copies could be made. And so this is the augmented reality that happens with this particular piece. This is a really short video. But it tells you the history of Talbot, as well as Octavius Hill, and Robert Adamson. David Hill was a painter and Adamson was an engineer, and they formed Scotland's first photographic studio. And they were the first to produce a significant body of work using the new calliotype process. Unfortunately, Adamson fell ill in 1848 and he died when he was only 26. But the National Galleries of Scotland states that their work together had an enduring influence on photography worldwide and stands as one of the earliest and most important contributions to the art form. So that was a really fun thing to research while I was there. So those were some of the things that I was looking at, and I hopefully I've demonstrated how the work that I was making before the proposal that I basically outlined for you, and how my visual research would connect to that particular country and why it was important to go there. So now I'm going to talk to you about the student program and then the scholar program. Like I said, there are things that overlap with both of them in terms of writing a statement and stating your case and making a strong case of why you need to go to that particular country, but there are differences as well. So if you're thinking about applying, one thing that both programs offer, if you are affiliated with a university, is you want to check to see if you're a student. You want to check to see if you have a Fulbright program advisor, and that's an FPA. And if you're a scholar, you want to make sure, you want to see if you have a Fulbright liaison for your campus. And the reason why is because these officers, I want to say, are there to help the applicants with their applications. So every component of their application, they actually set due dates for you to actually get drafts into them. They have readers for you. And they can help you with any question that you possibly have. So that's their job, and they do a thorough job with the applicants as well. So for students, if you have graduated, if it hasn't been 5 years, you can still contact your alma mater and you can apply through your institution. There are two ways to apply for a student. It's either within your university, or you apply what's called at large. And you can do either. I applied at large. I didn't actually apply through University of Michigan. And there's no hindrance to either, but if you are affiliated with the university, you can tap into the Fulbright program advisors, which are fantastic. Let's see, so we're moving on. So within the student program itself, you can see up at the headings there are the program advisors, and then you want to search to see if you have a program advisor. And so the next page, it will take you to this, and then you can actually see I'm typing in Indiana University, or I can type in the state, and there's my university right there. And so this is my program advisor if I was an undergraduate. And I've had several conversations with Paul Fogelman, and he has sessions throughout the entire year. They actually do webinars. He gives students critical feedback as well as sample applications. So very well worth your time to seek them out. So the type of awards to talk about for students, you can see it's under about, and then type of awards, and then there's study research, there's English teaching assistant awards. Those are the two main ones. And then there's also supplemental awards as well. The application for the student, the application deadline for the students they're basically two. It depends on if you're applying at large or if you're applying for a university. Campus deadlines will vary, but for IU, for example, it's August 24th, and that's to get your first drafts of your statements in. The national deadline, when everything is due, is October 13th. So whether you're applying at large or through university, that is the key date for you. There are limitations to receiving an award. If you are a student, you can receive one in your lifetime. So that is something to think about. And then if you have been out of school for 5 years, then you would actually apply to the Scholar Program. So the English Teaching Assistant Award, that is to go teach English with a supplementary project. And this could be something that you are interested in. For most of you, I'd imagine it would be something in the arts. And if it was that you were interested in ceramics or jewelry, it could be a technique, it could be a particular material. So that's what you would write about in your statement. The Open Study Research Awards, that is the one that I got. That is where you just go and you conduct your research. If you are doing open study and you want to apply to their master's program, that is writing a little bit different, because that is something that you can do if you would have to get accepted, like I said, to their master's degree program. But when you do open study research and you're not going for a degree, you would write just about your project and what you would like to do and what you would like to accomplish there. If you actually were applying for a degree, you would have to project yourself into the future, talking about what you would like to do in graduate school. So it's a little bit different in terms of how you frame your statements, and that's something to consider if you would like to do that. Again, you would have to check out what fees are associated with that degree, if any. Most likely it would be, and then if they would waive those fees for a Fulbright Scholar, because that is something that can happen. There are also special awards. You can see the National Geographic Storytelling, there's the Fulbright Fellowship. Some of you might have heard about the Hayes, the Fulbright Hayes Scholarship. That's actually through the Department of Education. That's not through this particular award program. So yeah, I mentioned if you are out of graduate school for 5 years, and you would definitely want to apply to the Scholar program. So going a little bit further, getting started. The application is a thorough application for sure. So you want to I would definitely encourage you to explore the website to see all the components that they have. And I'm just giving you highlights right now. But you want to get started just by reviewing what is actually your eligibility. So who is eligible? Recent graduates, graduating seniors, or recent bachelor's degree recipients. Some have undergraduate preparation and or direct work internships experience related to the project. Master's and doctoral candidates. So graduate level candidates must demonstrate the capacity for independent study or research, together with a general knowledge of the history, culture, and current event of the countries to which they're applying. And that is really key. You don't want to just say, like, I want to go to Italy to study paintings because I really like the paintings in the museums there, and you might pull out like a couple of people that you really have to talk about the culture and talk about why this particular place, not just these particular things, but why this particular place is so important to you, because it is a cultural engagement and an exchange. So it is open to young professionals, including writers and creative and performing artists, journalists, those in law, business, and other professional fields. And again, you don't necessarily have to be within a university. You can actually have other experience as well. So you want to determine what type of applicant you are, whether you're applying through the institution, applying at large. You want to select your awards, so whether it's teaching English or doing independent research. You want to review the country opportunities. So every country has their own little page and description of what awards they accept, what eligibility requirements that they have. They might have special funding. They might have, you want to look at the number of awards in terms of your, not your chances, but yeah, I mean, your chances of maybe being selected. Some countries have a lot more awards, some don't. There are some countries that are highly competitive in terms of the number of applications that are received by that particular country. And I would say, like, in general, English speaking countries are very sought after because of that language requirement. But again, some institutions or some host countries, the language requirement isn't as critical. So again, you want to read through your particular country of where you're interested in going. And then you definitely want to review the application components. For sure, just go open up an application. You would apply through Fulbright, so you would open an account, and then you would go through the application components and just see what is required. On the Fulbright page for students, there is also videos and tutorials. So in the About section down at the bottom, these are really quite helpful. When you go to the tutorials, there is a general one. Not sure why they did it. There's a general one that gives you an overview of the student Fulbright program. And then further down, the third tutorial is actually about art study and research, because we have an unusual component of putting together a portfolio, and that actually, like I said, it talks to your statement, and those two support each other to some degree. So this is a really great tutorial to watch. And then these are the application components. So as you can see, there's several different things. There is the biographical data, just name, date of birth, that kind of thing. They also want to ask what your experience is in that country. If you have been to a foreign country on like an overseas program, that doesn't count. But if you've spent extensive time in that country, chances are you might not be eligible because you've already spent quite a bit amount of time in that particular country. Short trips, though, that doesn't count. You want to, whoa, that just kind of went crazy. Program information, so that's just telling you about the program. Statement of grant purpose, that is the statement that they are going to read, and that is the one where you are really stating your case. The affiliation letter, that's your host. You want to make sure that you have an affiliation letter, and again, it doesn't have to be a university. Molly went to Gray Street, so there are other places that you can seek out, especially if it totally makes sense with your particular application. There is a personal statement, so that tells the people that are reading about you and why you're interested in, you know, artwork in general, your artwork, and then also tying in why this particular place. The foreign language forms, recommendations, that's standard as well. Students have to turn in transcripts, and then there's reading over the ethical requirements. So this is, I actually opened up a student page or an application, and so these are the questions that they're asking you in terms of, you know, are you a US citizen? Because if you're not, then you're not eligible, that kind of thing, where you are in your degree. And then you can see these are the checklists of what's going on, of what you need to fill out. So it is an extensive application. It's not undoable though. Like I said, I did it within a week. And that was really quite crazy for my student award. So for the Scholar Program, this is finding your liaison. So it's on the on-campus, and there's a scholar liaison. It's a little bit different from the student because you want to click this little button right here to see if you have a liaison. So typing in Indiana University, there's Bloomington, and then this is our liaison. And so they really are there to help you with your application. And they actually will find people in the field who are similar to what you're applying to, and they will act as readers for you. So definitely tap into them because it's quite amazing, that resource. So with this particular website, you can find things in a couple different ways. So this is Explore the U.S. Scholar Program when you click on that, or you can find it up here. So Programs, U.S. Scholars, and then these are other awards within the Scholar Program itself. And then this is finding the programs themselves. So under this page of programs, you'll see there's the awards catalog, and you can also find it right here. When you click on that, that actually lets you search for the countries and what is and what you're interested in. So you can select by region. If you already know you want to be in a particular area, you can select through that particular country, or if you want to just type in your discipline, and that's what I did. I typed in art, and so here was mine for the University of Dundee in art and design. And so you can see what they support is research or teaching and research. And so and you can see right over here, whoops, right over here, Turkmenistan, they only support teaching. So again, if you're affiliated with the university, you would want to go to your dean and say, I'm applying for this Fulbright, I'm going to do teaching research, will you support that? And that means, you know, supplementing your income while you're away. At IU, I was going to try and do a teaching research because I thought it would be fun to actually do some teaching in Scotland, but they said, you know, you are better off to do just the research because you will get your more compensation that way from the university. And so this is the, I'm not sure why it's doing that. So this is the United Kingdom, Europe, Eurasia. This is Dundee itself. You can see right up at the top here, the University of Dundee. And so this is explaining like what's actually available within the award details. So the grant length, right, locations, there's no flex options. You see the arts are there. And then they awarded one grant for that particular, for Europe and Eurasia. That was it for art. So that was kind of crazy. So the U.S. Scholar Program, with this I want to, sorry, I'm a little behind on my notes. So it is similar to the student scholar application. So this is the application page. You want to make sure that you have your letter of invitation. You want to see if there is a language proficiency that's needed for your application. Through the application, you want to make sure that you check out the requirements because there is always some extra requirements. And you can see down at the bottom here, one of the requirements is having a bibliography for your project statement. So the due date for the scholars is September rather than October. So the students are due in October and the scholars are due in September. And so the project statement itself, that's what this page is. It's really the what, how, why, the benefits that you're going to get out of it. It's a pretty typical type of application or statement itself. There's an overall timeline that happens with both the students and the scholars. The applications for students, they open in March. The applications are due in fall. And like I said, there could be a campus deadline, but then there's also a national at-large deadline, which is October 13th. There's a couple screening processes that they go through. So there's a national screening process for the students from November to December. Initial notification is by January, and I believe that has a Skype interview now component to it, because they want to actually interact with the person who is a potential Fulbright recipient. And then the final selection for the scholars is March through April. So it could be any time within that. I found out in March, actually. So for the scholars, again, the application is due in February. Sorry, the applications are open in February. They're due in September. They have a couple different review processes. So from October to November, they have peer reviews. In December, applicants are notified if they are recommended for further consideration by the host country. Then their application goes over to the Binational Fulbright Commission or Public Affairs U.S. embassies to review the recommended applications and nominate selections from that review process. And they will have a Skype interview for those potential nominations as well. Then in January and June, all recommended candidates are forwarded to the J. William Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board for approval. And then the CIES notifies the candidates when they've been selected for an award. And so when you're applying, just some last couple notes, and I'm going to open it up to some questions. You really want to keep in mind that you are an ambassador of the United States. The application process is very thorough, and it's supposed to be that way because they want to make sure that they are vetting really good candidates, people who are going to represent the U.S. in the best way possible, not only for their research and their their studies while abroad, but also because of the cultural exchange that happens, and they want it to be a good experience for everyone. They want you to know that you are really active in your field and you are excited about the idea of cultural and intellectual exchange. So if you do get to the point where you're having that Skype interview, you want to do your research and talk about the culture that you will be immersed in and that you are excited to be a part of that. And you want to make sure that you are someone who can make a contribution to the field and that you've clearly stated the importance of what you're going to do in that particular country itself. So at this point, I would be really happy to take some questions if anyone has any. I know that it's a lot of information at once, but hopefully it's not too overwhelming for you. And then I also have a folder that I've put together with actual statements themselves, helpful writing materials and handouts, a resume templates for the students, templates for asking for an affiliation letter, and some sample applications that have been successful. So if anyone would like to ask, oh, sorry, there's a chat. And you can just unmute yourself and ask, yeah. Madeline?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I had the little hand raise icon.
Sure.
I was wondering about the language evaluation. You said that 2 people evaluate your proficiency in
Yeah.
the language of the country you've chosen. Do they do that over Skype? Or do you pass a test by the Goethe Institute if you're applying to Germany or something?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question because I have not had to do that. But I would imagine that are you affiliated with the university right now?
No.
Okay. Have you graduated recently?
No, I would definitely be scholar and not student.
Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, I would contact your alma mater then and ask them where you would get the language proficiency evaluators. And or there might be a certain question and answer on the Fulbright webpage. That is something that I haven't had to check out. So I don't really have a great answer for that, but they have a really great help section and there is a contact there where you can just email them questions.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful. And if anyone else just wants to jump in and ask a question.
Nicole?
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
So if I did this, I would be a scholar also. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned that if you apply as being affiliated with an institution, there are like designated advisors at, say, each university or whatever, Fulbright advisors. Is there anything similar like that for at-large scholar applicants? Advisors that like maybe, but I don't know who.
Yeah, not really. Through the Fulbright web porthole thing, they do have people that will help you.
Okay.
You can contact them, and you can certainly contact me. I'm more than happy to be a reader.
Great.
Yeah, and just to look over the application is pretty standard in terms of like your biographical information. The thing that in all the like language requirements, you would find out about that in terms of contacting them for sure. But the biggest parts that people have the problem with is the purpose of the statement, purpose of grant. You're writing about why you're going there. And then for students, they have the added statement of the personal statement. With a scholar, you wouldn't have that. So that is the major hurdle is to get that statement well crafted.
Okay.
Yeah, to state your idea of going and why. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Sure. Anyone else? I think there's yeah.
I have a question, but it's I don't know if you. Hi.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I am actually outside of America. I'm in Ireland, and I'm looking to go to do a Fulbright in America. Is there anything that you would suggest or recommend that, as a flip side?
Yeah. That's really exciting. Is there any part about America that is, like you want to hone in on? We got a lot here.
I know.
or like a particular institution, because we have so many schools that you could choose from as well.
I was kind of thinking East Coast because I have done in my undergraduate J1 exchange to America, where I worked with the name's gone now. Berman, Harry Stell Berman for 3 months, and that was like in 2003. So I have many years experience, and I've returned to Ireland to do my master's, but I would like to take advantage of the situation to be able to go and try for the Fulbright.
Yeah. You should.
I was kind of thinking, how long are your statements and how many pages and that kind of thing, if you would have recommendations.
Yeah, that all is all spelled out for you. And I will share this Google Drive folder for you guys so that you can see some samples of that. And so first of all, like coming to the United States, if you want to be affiliated with a university, that's one thing. You could also be affiliated with like Baltimore Jewelry Center, for example, might host you. And it's really just getting them on board and just saying, and writing you a letter and saying, yes, we'll host you and we'll provide you some studio space. And then they might ask, for fees for gas and, any expendables that you would use or something like that. So again, it doesn't have to be a university per se, but you might want to come to a university. They have really great resources for you to tap into. So really finding out if you know the East Coast, then I would do the research because you have the UK Commission in for the UK, right?
Yeah, Ireland is part of the EU, and
oh, it is. Yeah, sorry.
No, we're quite close. Ireland is divided. So the north of Ireland is part of the UK, and
Apologies.
Time. No, you're fine.
Yeah. So,
Oh, Aoife, please. Sorry.
because I know that the UK has a US UK Fulbright Commission, and so they were fantastic to work with, and I wonder if you would fall under the EU Fulbright Commission. So they're there to, help along the way with any application. But I would get you to think about, if you know the East Coast, then, institution versus not an institution, and then thinking of things in around the East Coast, like for example, it could be the Civil War, I don't know. It could be, like Civil War battlefields and, traveling to some of those areas. It could be, investigating, what else would I'm trying to think of something that's like unique. Like it could be along the East Coast. I know up in Maine, there's granite deposits there. So there's a particular type of stone that's in this particular type of region that you want to go explore. And then you could be at Maine College of Art, doing that research. So something like that, tying that particular location in with your work and your research, depending on what you're interested in researching.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I actually have a question about the.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anyone off there.
No, it's okay.
So for the scholars grant, currently I believe I'm still in the bracket. I originally graduated with my bachelor's in 2017 and had my master's conferred in 2019. So I believe I'm still somewhat in the
Student.
Yeah, the student bracket, but for the excuse me, the scholar component, how would the bibliography work for say something that's focused on the artistic side of things?
So it sounds like you would still fall under student, right? Because it was 2017 that you graduated.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the open student scholarship and the research scholar, did I say that right? Yeah.
Right.
The student one and the scholar one are essentially the same kind of award. You're going and you're proposing and you're conducting your research affiliated with someone or somewhere, right?
Right.
Whether it's an institution or not. You do not have to do the personal statement with the scholar application. You do with the student. So telling them about yourself. Yeah. And then the bibliography is really more along the lines of the research that you've been doing and documenting that, so that backs up your visual research and your statement. Yeah. That's all it is really. And I have my example in this folder that I will share with you all. So you can see what my bibliography looked like. It was maybe like 3/4 of a page, and it was talking about Scottish artifacts, and it was talking about augmented reality, I think, I can't remember. But it was also talking about like new technology and what I was looking at. Cause that's all what I look at now. Yeah. So it's really just compiling that into a bibliography and again, the components talk to each other, right? They back each other up. Yeah.
Right, yeah, they back it up. Like I can see how you would do it if you were, say, like writing a paper, like doing something for a journal, but I wouldn't know how that would work for something then like the more like visual or sometimes like the artistic work.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. If you were like Robert Baines, who came to the US to do research at the Met with Etruscan gold work, he would be listing collections on his bibliography of gold work, as well as books that have been written so far on the Etruscan gold work, because he does that work anyway, as well as like any experimental work, because he used the electron scanning microscope with his research as well. So that would all be making up his bibliography in regards to what he's looking at and the things that he has been researching.
Right, so everything that's basically been informing your like lens, like how you're looking at this topic.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
All right, like thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Anyone else?
You had said that a person might not be eligible if they've spent a longer period of time in a particular country. Do you know if that's sort of standard across the board, like if you were there for 1 year as an exchange student or lived there? or does it sort of vary by country? Or
It can vary by country, and that's where you really, and every country is so different. That's why when you're checking out the catalog of awards, you really have to go to that country and see like what are the requirements.
okay, so that is all it's
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be that that's not a problem. I know that the like student exchange, for summer programs and stuff like that, that's not a problem. But I think there might be like a set amount of time that they want to make sure that you don't have, like you can't be there for 5 years and then be like, I want to do a Fulbright. It's like, you've already been there.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah. Did I talk about the benefits of what, like in general, what the Fulbright covers? Okay, so the award itself, it's round trip airfare to and from, and I believe that dependents also receive some stipend for the airfare. I can't remember I think that might depend by country as well. You get a living stipend while you're there. There might be money available for materials and tools, things like that, or shipping costs. So that's something that would be in the country description. You get health insurance, which is a big thing, especially for Americans, let's see, you also, you get compensation if you have dependents and your dependents are going with you. So that is very helpful. And with the allowance that you get, that varies by the length of stay, because as a scholar, you could go for anywhere from 2 months to a year if you want to. So your stipend is going to correlate to that, as well as the cost of living in that particular country. So everything varies from country to country, as well as with the award itself. And I think it also varies, it varies by the cost of living at that particular time. Yeah. And when they give you a stipend, it's not as though you're going to, go live in a mansion or something. It's going to be a cost of living that's appropriate for, decent housing. The one thing that they don't provide, which was a nightmare, I won't lie, especially my first one, they don't provide housing unless, I would imagine the exception might be is if you were actually going to go get another degree. There might be student housing that you could tap into if you are a degree seeking student. But the nice thing that has happened though is Airbnb, as well as there are, like, if you're a scholar, you could tap into like sabbatical home replacement thing. So there are these websites that actually people go on sabbaticals and then they exchange houses. And so that might be something to tap into as well. But Airbnb was really a great thing because I had a really hard time finding long-term accommodation in Scotland because I didn't have a bank account. And so renters won't rent to you unless you have a bank account. You can't get a bank account because you're not a citizen, that kind of thing. So it kind of snowballs in that regard. So housing can be difficult, but it is not undoable. Yeah. And sometimes I think that's the representatives who are there in that particular country, they can gear you towards people that can help you with housing, locating, whether it's whether you have a family and you need a realtor or that kind of thing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you say at large, like if you're just a working artist and not affiliated with a university, is there any parameter around that?
Nope. You can apply.
Apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it would be the same, like if a lawyer in town wanted to go research, criminal practices in like Amsterdam, they would apply, and they would just apply at large, and they would state their case in terms of, I'm a criminal lawyer and you've just freed up heroin, in Amsterdam for anyone to use now. I'd like to go study the repercussions of that within the field of the law. Yeah. So no, you do not have to be affiliated with a university at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Nicole, can you talk about the timing? Like you talked about the deadlines and when you hear, but then if you hear in spring of the year you apply, or the system in which you apply, you don't go the following fall. It's like a whole year from that fall? No,
you go that fall.
You go that fall. So
you find out in spring, and then over the summer, you're getting ready to go in the fall.
So
the one exception, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The one exception for that is like, I applied to Australia. Their school year is opposite. So I actually didn't go until the following February.
Just because of that particular country.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you found out in March.
Yeah.
And then you left for your most recent scholar award.
Yeah.
and then you left in the fall.
Yeah.
And you
Late
were in
August.
Scotland for how long?
I was in Scotland for 5 months.
So you missed the fall semester. Did you come back and teach in the spring then?
Yes.
And you had that all worked out with your university before
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you're affiliated with the university I'm taking it.
Yes, Penn
Yeah.
State.
So you want to go to your dean and tell them what your plans are and get all that like in place in terms of would you
Right.
support teaching research? Would you only support research? And get that in place because that's going to affect how much they supplement your salary.
Did you have to align yours with a sabbatical?
No, and don't do that if you don't have to. Thank you for bringing that up. And the
Okay.
reason why is because you would be using up a sabbatical. You deserve your sabbatical anyway. This is a prestigious award. And you want to make sure that you spend your time doing your research. And then if something else happens, then you want to like use your sabbatical to do that.
Yeah, I've heard I've had colleagues that have received the award and I've heard mixed reviews. Like some of them are like, no, use your sabbatical because then you can decide when you want to go. And then I've heard other people say what you just said. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on campus.
No. And if it works out better for you, and depending on your institution, and they're like, hey, we can't support this, you have to use your sabbatical. Because I mean, right now the
Right.
climate,
Yeah.
that could be a thing that you have to deal with. But if you
Right.
can not use it, I would suggest not, because then that's a whole other semester that you can use.
Right. Well, then I'm also waiting 5.5, 6 years, having just had one. So like, it's not,
Yeah.
I don't want to wait that long. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else?
Nicole, I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about through your research and when you get there, how do you document your stuff, and are you presenting or are you sending feedback or updating the Fulbright Scholar organization on what you're doing? And at the end of the session, is there a presentation like you would do in a residency?
That is a really good question, because some scholar host countries, they want you to give presentations while you're there. And that's really the interaction with the community and the culture. So I gave several presentations while I was in Scotland. And that's just a really great thing to do, because you're highlighting the Fulbright, you're telling more people about it, you're telling them they can come to the United States, and you're really acting as that, kind of show person, that ambassador of your country. And it's a really wonderful thing to do. There is like there's no report that you have to fill out. I believe it's more like an online kind of questionnaire thing. They want to know how the Fulbright helped you, maybe did you receive supplemental awards from it afterwards, that kind of thing. But there's not like a lengthy report that you have to do at the end, for sure, like a written report, right? You don't have to report to anyone while you're there. You're basically there just doing your research. And your research, and this is maybe a bigger thing to say, while you're there, your research can and most likely will change, and that's okay. So you can see, like, I had an idea with the artifacts when I went to Scotland, and then just living in the city, I was like, oh, I'm really thinking about the city now. And I'm still thinking about the artifacts, but you're there just to make your work, and that's your job. And you're reporting to you.
Okay. So you're not actually, if you're going through a university organization, it would be their expectations of whether you want to share your research with them or with anybody else. Okay.
Yeah. And while you're there, you could collaborate. You could find that your research overlaps with someone else and start something new. Yeah. Yeah. But it's really a time for you to just be a scholar and do your research, and go take trips to wherever to supplement, like if you needed to go look at historical artifacts, like I went down to Edinburgh several times. I went up looking at waterfalls, and just to get out into Scotland to see more of it, and understand that place as a country itself. And it's invaluable, to get out there and do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In the package that you're going to include, will you include some of the work that you did out there that came out of some of your Fulbright?
The augmented reality?
Yeah.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, great. That would be great.
I'll do the stills, and then if you want to see the movie that goes along with them, I can upload those too.
Okay, great.
They're
Thank big. So it's interesting to just see what people do to get an idea of how you should structure your project.
Yeah, Yeah. And I will say, like, I fought the guilty feeling of like, no, I should be doing the artifact thing. I need to be doing the artifact thing. It's like, but I'm really interested in these buildings. And like, I kept researching more about Dundee and finding more about it. And that was the first thing to, that got completed because I was really excited about it. And then I just had to let go of that and just like, you know what? No one is going to come and say, no one's going to come look at my personal or my grant proposal and be like, hey, you didn't do that. Yeah. The idea, I still got so much out of it, and that's really what it's about. Yeah. Cause you can never really predict fully what you're going to be influenced by and create.
Right.
Yeah. And if you do, then you're I think you're stifling the creative process anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of antithesis to the whole concept of going there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we might have covered this, but how many Fulbright scholarships have you been on?
2. I had a student scholarship and then I had a scholar scholarship. Okay. And then I also, I've acted as a reader as well for candidates coming or applying to the U.S. So that was really great. I can't share those because that's under confidentiality of Fulbright, but I'm sharing things that our Fulbright officer here shared with me and that he shares with his students. So that's, pretty much open to share.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So this feels really naive about academia, but you talk about as the scholars that your salary would be supplemented.
Yeah.
You're talking about your salary being supplemented by your institution or by Fulbright?
Institution.
So that you're saying that the institution may, over the amount that you're getting paid from the Fulbright, bring it up to your usual salary?
No, but they will give you a portion of it. No, I tried to do that. Yeah. I was like, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So they will, because it is such a prestigious award and they want you to go, they want to make sure that you can financially go, in terms of like you have a mortgage at home, you have maybe student loans or whatever it is. So they'll definitely pay a portion of your salary. And you need to, find that out ahead of time for sure. Just
interesting.
So that it works for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe in research 1, they, do the whole thing.
They do that for Guggenheim.
Oh, but I thought Guggenheim is like a full salary anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah. So hi, Nicole.
Hi.
So in the application process, just you talking about how you shifted a lot when you were in Dundee.
Yeah.
How much of your project in your statement how much should you define, like what you're wanting to do?
Well, I talk about it pretty in depth in terms of, I did my research on specific artifacts like that Hunterson brooch that I showed you. That was something that I really wanted to look at itself. But then I also talked about the recent hoards that were found because they're still finding them. So they're finding these buried collections of objects, some of them wearable, some of them just objects throughout the United Kingdom, and specifically in Scotland. They just found, in London they found one, and I want to say like up in northern Scotland they just found one. So I talk about that in terms of storytelling and augmented reality, and here are these artifacts that are unique to Scotland itself. For example, the Hunterson brooch, the way that they're made, the way that they're worn. And then, how can I story tell with those in another way other than using a QR code? And so then kind of bringing in augmented reality, and what would that mean? And what kind of engagement would that give the viewer in a different way other than just having a statement up telling you everything? You actually get visuals. You'd see what I'm seeing when I'm doing my research. So that's kind of how I framed it. Does that answer your question or not?
Yeah, I guess I just wondered like how specific you did get in your application, and then obviously you saying that they're not going to come knocking at your door because you didn't do exactly that because you still were inspired. But I guess that's what I was just wondering.
Yeah,
you were.
Yeah, so I will invite you to that folder, and you will see my application.
Okay.
And you'll see how detailed I get, and I do a timeline as well. And like I said, there is the bibliography there. And in your application, they want you to hit certain bullet points, the who, what, why, how, where, whatever. And so I talk about those throughout the application itself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So you definitely want to you want to do your research. So you want to state your case of like, this is why I have to do it in Scotland. I can't do it in Pakistan because they don't have the same type of cultural artifacts that I'm looking at. I'm interested in these things from the Viking era. I'm interested in these hoards that were buried there, you know, and so that's why I'm honing in that particular place, and you're doing your research to kind of back it up. And it's not, I don't want you to, you know, go out and read every single book on Scotland artifacts, but you definitely have to know what you're talking about, because you need to write about it, and you need to make sure that your whatever work that you're making currently is somehow backing that up, moving your work forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Someone chats.
Okay. Well, if anyone has any other questions, you have my email. And like I said, please reach out. I'm more than happy to help however I can. It truly was a life-changing experience twice. And I really feel like we need it now more than ever to understand other cultures and have them understand us for sure. So if anyone is applying, I wish you luck, and let me know if I can help, and I will share some information with you. You have a question or no?
Oh, I have a question. Do you know what they're doing in the current circumstances where there's travel restrictions, and are they taking applications in for the fall?
Yeah, they are taking applications. Yeah, and so I was just asking our representative here about them. Like, man, are they even? From what I've heard, the Fulbrighters came back, and I believe that they're going to have the opportunity to go in the future. So it's not as though they lost that award, which is great, because that money's already been allocated for those people. It might be that people who are going say you were successful and you were going not this fall, but like next fall, it might be delayed until the vaccine, you know, that kind of thing. Sure. But as of now, they have the applications open, and they are receiving applications.
Okay, great.
They're intending to go forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible to receive a recording of this?
I am recording it, and I'm giving it to Tara Jacquard, and she will distribute it. And I'm not really sure how, but I know it's going to happen.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. All right. Well, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, then I would really like to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. I mean, I don't have all the answers for you. Yeah, but I wish you luck with your applications, and please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me, because I'm more than happy to help whoever. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your generosity.
Nicole.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.